Alright, let's get to this, shall we? 2 years, well, yes, 2 years after the first game, Insomniac managed to make the sequel to it, Resistance 2, with TJ Fixman as the writer in this case. And like I said, this is actually the game with the story that I genuinely like the most out of all of them.
Would you say?
Considering it in a general aspect, you will see its facets as it goes on.
I know you hinted that there's some rocky stuff coming out across the series, but would you say that this is the best game overall of the
No,
series?
this is something that you will have to decide for yourself by the time we're done.
Fair enough. I guess we'll see by the
First,
credit game, which
however,
is
you may first of all you notice a bit of a difference. The first of all, the menu is a bit more, animated truly compared to the previous one, but it looks a bit, more focused on the multiplayer. Which, to be fair, like I said, it was one of the selling point of the first game, so it makes sense. Also, big thing that they added in this, but you will not see, is co-op or mode for single player, which unfortunately you will not be able to see because unfortunately I don't have any friends.
oh,
Ah,
Are the servers of this thing even up still to this point?
No, but I don't know if it's.
Oh, but look at that, guys! You can connect to the PSP.
Yes, because it basically similar to what the GameCube did something to the Game Boy Advance games. This, but connected to PSP, will unlock bonuses for Resistance Retribution, which you will see when I eventually record that, because the current version of that comes patched in with all the bonuses already placed.
I love how casual is the easy setting. Like, way to
That's
call
usually
out.
that's usually how it's called.
Here's
Anyway,
the all of your filthy casuals.
a reminder how things have been happening. In which millions are infected, starting from Russia. Those that survive are no longer human. They are the Chimera.
So basically, a recap of the first game.
Yeah, in 1951, the Chimera crossed the English Channel. To aid the British resistance, the US deployed 12,000 troops.
Which ended up
Only
being useless.
one survives. This is his story.
He's totally not possessed, we swear.
To be fair, we did mention that he's infected technically, but so far he has, demonstrated that, he's perfectly fine. So let's get a recap of that post-credit scene that we had at the end of the first game.
Just in case, for whatever reason, you didn't stay after the credits to see.
To be fair, we're basically gonna expand on that. So it's kind of like how Thor Ragnarok had the same post-credit scene from Doctor Strange, just expanded onto it.
so we've got a new composer for this game, Boris C. Salchow.
More on that later, Waves, because again, this initial cutscene is still relatively important. Anyway, these are operatives of the organization known as SRPA, an American organization.
Wait, so
We'll
you went
see
along
later.
with them, but then started fighting them. What?
Because he believed that we were going to dissect him, so for the time being, they only tranquilized him.
Apologize for the sedative, but until we know how far along you are, we have to consider Major Richard.
This guy is played by Troy Baker. He's gonna be essentially your sort of commander for the game.
Because of course he is.
Survivors of Project Abraham undergo.
For the time being, we're gonna go to Iceland.
It's just protocol, Sergeant. Answers will come in due time.
Spoilers, they sorta won't, but more at the end of this part.
I'm surprised they didn't get Noah North to voice this guy. It's usually
I think
Noah North.
I think he voices one. It's one of the soldiers in multiplayer, probably. That's usually how it goes. All right. So our first level, as mentioned, is in Iceland, which unfortunately the SRPA base is under attack.
Well, guess that means our meeting's going to get delayed.
Again, we're gonna need one thing that they immediately do is we're gonna need more set pieces, making each level count for something. So let's do something grandiose.
Iceland has fallen too. Oh, where are we going to get our lazy town memes now?
It also begs the question how the Chimera got to Iceland.
They swam. I don't know.
Well, remember, in order to get into the British Islands, they had to dig under it.
Maybe
So basically, here's our first thing. First of all, the controls are slightly different, and you have a sprint button. Also, the presentation, you can see there's actually more color this time, less desaturation. And the first level in this is gonna be trying to sneak behind this Goliath in order to kill it. Our starting weapon is a Magnum. It's not the worst weapon in the game, but it's very situational, and I would rather not use it. But let's check this intel, just also to showcase how bad the intel is in this game. The high explosive .44 Magnum fires armor-piercing rounds, useful for close quarters combat scenarios. This is the only weapon in the SRPA arsenal certified to use with glycerin rounds. Each slug carries a small explosive charge that can be both detonated from a switch near the trigger guard. To fire, press R1. To activate a round inside an enemy, press R2, not L1 anymore. Secondary fire is R2. But you also see a snippet, and basically the intel is this kind of dry, type of presentation compared to a previous game. And for this and another particular reason that I will mention later, I will not showcase anything outside of a weapon intel. Because also, spoilers, for some reason there is no enemy intel in this game. And I don't know why.
So let me get this straight.
It was actually very cool in the first game. I don't know why they removed that.
So it seems to have gone to the school of, let's upgrade some things, but degrade other things for no good reason.
Let's, again, for the time being, we're just tutorializing you about, there you go, the secondary fire. So there is that. There you go.
The jump wasn't a nuke.
You also noticed that you have an icon when your character is crouching, but if you have a keen eye, you might have noticed that something is missing from the HUD, something that was in the previous game, notably the health bar. But first of all, new weapon. We're already having a bunch of weapons returning from the previous game. In this case, the rocket launcher Lark. There you go. The L-210 Lark, light anti-armor rocket, has been significantly improved since its design was acquired by SRPA Research and Development in 1951. Increased range and accuracy has made it a formidable weapon against stalkers, Goliath, and other heavy vehicles. A special modification fires dozens of explosive shredders capable of reaching fortified areas. But yeah, let me tell something. Someone in the development team, I don't know who, so I'm not making any names specifically, say those magic words during the development of this game. We want the Call of Duty audience. So basically the gameplay as a result is okay, it's functional, but it's absolutely a lot of steps down from this game. Namely, not anymore having an health bar, no medkit, you regenerate health instead, completely instead your screen turning red when you take damage. And also, worst of all, only 2 weapons at a time!
Yeah.
What the fuck?
Even though the developers were proud of the weapon.
Anyway, let me read this. This upgraded Chimeran battle rifle fires high velocity ion burst, which perforate victims. While not accurate at great distances, a secondary modification allows the user to deploy a quote-unquote homing tag, which attracts every subsequent shot. Press R1 to fire ion burst. To deploy a homing tag, press R2. The weapon is also capable of setting explosive traps, which has small but lethal blast radiuses. To set a trap, deploy a homing tag by pressing and holding R2. Once it is established on a surface, press R1 to bait the trap. To shift its position, tap R2. To detonate the trap, press and hold R2. To mention quickly, like I just said, you can only carry 2 weapons at a time, but the arsenal is still there. You basically have to do the other stuff that Gears of War Call of Duty was doing, and it's essentially constantly swap between weapons as they, are present in the game, and you have to, collect them on the ground.
Okay.
And sure, I know that there is an audience for this thing thanks to, again, the presence of shooters like Halo and Call of Duty, but I'm sorry, I will never understand this outside of balancing for multiplayer. For a single-player campaign, this is just unexcusable. A character should have actually potentially the right to have the entire arsenal at disposal and choose freely instead of having to literally rely on what you find on the ground. Unless it's a survival horror, I suppose, in which case maybe there's tension. But even stuff like Resident Evil allow you to carry more than 2 weapons at a time.
I was about to
really,
say,
no, there's no excuse.
Like, the funny thing is that the Magnum's the first weapon here. in Resident Evil games, usually the Magnum is one of the later but best weapons you can get in those games.
And the thing is, if you're wondering, maybe the Magnum, is a substitute for the Carabine. No, we will get the Carabine later anyway. So they could have started with that. Again, they were trying to showcase, new cool weapons and everything. But Alondra, before you do, Blibs, you wanted to say something.
Honestly, two things. One, honestly, every time I hear Magnum, it makes me think of the ice cream. And two, is it at least not like in GoldenEye Rogue Agent, where yes, you can have one or two weapons, but they are the only ones you can have in your hands?
Well, no, that's kind of exactly the point, Lives. It's not technically one or two weapons in the entire game. It's the one that you carry on at a time, Like I said, old school shooters, particularly, coming from Doom, Wolfenstein, Quake, Unreal, they had, the character just carrying the weapon, sure. It had the special disbelief that your character had an entire arsenal in his pockets, but it was fairly acceptable for the sake of, having the game being fun for you to play. Instead, here, you basically, again, because of the Call of Duty franchise, Modern Warfare was going strong, you had to basically rely on Nathan Hale, in this case, having to scrounge weapons that he can find. And yes, a couple of times, you may find yourself in the wrong situation with the wrong weapon, and you get screwed as a result, or basically have a harder time. It's not like a case of soft locking, but it really is, an unfortunate situation that happens. Anyway, just to also mention stuff from the technical aspects, we kind of ditched the structure of small segmented level. Instead of we have a technically longer level that are still setting a specific set of location, but we have longer stretches that we can go through, complete with set pieces and everything. And even if it's not apparent now, Hale will actually talk more in this game, much more, and have a much more personality. So again, there is some improvement definitely on the writing.
I'm also not noticing any screen tearing so far, at least.
Yeah, like I said, the performance is also another good thing. Like I said, I didn't even notice that in the first game technically, but anyway, new enemy type, these drones, which to be fair, yes, the Chimera developed technology like Goliath, so it had to be expected that you had these things, but they're very, very annoying. Classic flying enemies that is present in huge quantities and serve just to annoy the shit out of you and making you waste bullet potentially.
Anyway, so in regards to, Insomniac now winning that Call of Duty money, I do find it a bit weird seeing as how, keep in mind, Call of Duty had already been a thing as early as 2003, and for whatever
Remember, around this time, this was when the next big, rise of success was going on with the Modern Warfare sub-series.
I was actually about to get to that. It's now, yeah, on first glance, you'd think, wait, why would they? But then, you keep into mind, what was the Call of Duty game that came in between Resistance 1 and Resistance 2? That would be the fourth Call of Duty game, Call of Duty Modern Warfare. Now,
which really was also a game changer, again.
Yeah, not just for Call of Duty itself, but arguably the industry itself as well.
Also, I forgot his name. Mate, I'm literally having to defend the position. Oh, because only one enemy was left. Unless, by that, he doesn't move to the scripted path. Thank God it's not like Aliens Colonial Marines.
Good lord.
Anyway, you're about to have a bit of a surprise now. Yeah, we will actually meet these Dr. Malikov later.
Neat. Okay, so what if it lets everyone in?
It's not about letting everyone in, it's about letting something out.
Echo 582 Alpha Charlie Bravo Alpha Delta Lima, come in, over.
We have only technically one angel in this game, but in order to give more personality, this angel has an identity, Daedalus. Voiced by Robin Atkins.
Yeah, I was going to say, does it talk?
Yep. Remember those lines, they will be important later.
Well,
Oh,
Blake,
that happened.
was it worth letting that thing out?
Daedalus has escaped. Airhawks divert all ordnance to South Wing grids A-13. Repeat, South Wing is now the primary target. All ground units, seal the South Wing exits. Follow me, Sergeant.
Okay, then.
Also, I love how this Icelandic facility has all its signs in English.
Well, to be fair, it is an
because,
American base. From what
yeah,
I
it's a
understand.
base of the SRPA, so...
It's like how... This reminds me of how in the first of the Hitman World of Assassination trilogy games, all the NPCs have either an American or British accent, despite of being in Marrakesh or wherever.
This. In December 1951, SRPA adopted the M5A2 Folsom Carbine as the standard issue weapon for its Sentinel program. The carbine is the most dependable on the market, firing .303 rounds with underslug M200 40mm high-velocity grenade launcher. Press and hold R1 to fire primary rounds, to fire an explosive grenade, press R2. Again, kind of like in the first game.
Neat.
There you go.
I mean, we were kind of used to this at this point because remember how in Lautrec everybody has British accents, even
except Lautrec's rival. For that one, they remembered he's supposed to have a French accent.
Yeah, I mean, to the series' credit, in Hitman 2 and 3, they do have more country-appropriate accents for NPCs. Like Indians have Indian accents and so on. Even though even if it meant we lost Fury Lowenthal along the way.
You know, the interesting thing is that Lautrec is one of the few 3DS games that runs flawlessly on Citra. So that game has now been successfully preserved. So there's that.
Perfect for gaming history.
What if I think Konami even forgets that they have it at this point.
Like I said, I mentioned this. Like I said in the past, with if again Getsu Fumaden can be remembered out of nowhere and without really that much of a fan base to speak of, I'm pretty sure everything is fair game at this point.
I'm trying
Noriaki Nakamura is still there. Remember, he's the Metal Gear producer. He recently was the producer of the Metal Gear Solid Legacy Collection. So if he manages to butter up the executives, he might be able to get one done. Although I still have my doubts because the composer has left Konami since then. A lot of people have left Konami since then.
They can just recycle the same soundtrack for that matter, or ask someone else to do it.
Yeah, I mean, it wouldn't be the first time we've seen a series change composers.
Oh, by the way, I think you're about to see. The reason we were seeing a couple of jump cuts in this Blake!
Blake, come on, man!
Now's not the time to show off.
You call that showing off?
For the record, too, I had a similar glitch like this in Life is Strange 2.
The curse strikes again. No, to be fair, there was a glitch when I got to the first time. I jump cut, Joe. I literally died. And I died again here too. Fucking hell, Blake.
Great
yeah,
start.
I guess
there was a glitch that I got the first time I played this game years ago, technically. But I unfortunately was not able to replicate it. But I will share it with you. I'm talking about it, when it actually happens.
So, in terms of the difficulty, is this game at least better,
A bit better, yes. Not that much compared to the first game. It's still relatively hard, but it's technically more manageable. But I mean, again, like I said, it's free, but actually probably has the better management between them.
Yeah, I guess
and I'm telling you because I still have to technically play Retribution on my own, so I cannot, tell you if that one is actually, even better or not.
Fair enough. I was mainly asking just to see, is this one at least more fair with its difficulty?
Like I said, better than the first one, but still not at that much. I can tell you that probably someone right now that will actually go into these games will still have a bad time with this one.
So,
and again, it becomes more difficult as it goes on. So there is that too. Go on.
It does seem like Insomniac were pretty much on a learning curve throughout this entire series, getting into this genre.
They did mention that the first one was an experiment, so I guess they did. This trilogy was a sort of a testing ground. But again, they keep mentioning in interviews that they still genuinely enjoy working on these, despite everything. I wanted to talk more about, that possibly at the end of the game, because it will require also full context of that.
Our first, let's call it a boss fight.
And by the way, the only Goliath in the entire game. I hope you enjoyed it.
I guess the idea is that we have new badass variants of enemies in this game.
Technically, yes, but it's kind of I get it why they need to have a strong opening as well, but you can have, another Goliath later down the line.
Is it like the equivalent of those warped locusts that we got starting in Gears of War 2 and culminating in Gears 3?
Kinda, sorta, you will see.
Okay.
Anyway, there you go. That guy on the left is Dr. Manikov, voiced by Greg Ellis. Again, taking aside real-life stuff, he's good as a voice actor for this game.
Malikov was just saying how lucky we are that you survived London. So, where are we headed? SRPA 3. It's a facility
Okay,
in San Francisco.
so now Nathan Hale has been invited to join the program called the Sentinels, specifically Project Abraham, as it's called.
Very nice.
It sounds intriguing, right? Except that at the beginning of the next part, as you will see, we do a jump cut of 2 years, and we see what Neil is gonna be doing after that. Do you want to know what happens in between those 2 years? Well, boy, howdy, do I have to tell you the solution of that. See, this was 2008. What was the big thing that was going around at the time for games like, say, I don't know, Dead Space and Final Fantasy? Supplementary material to fill in the gaps. Now, I do not know whose idea was it among, even if it was, Ted Price, probably still him at the ultimately because he had to approve that. I don't know if it was TJ Figman who suggested that or he just had to work with what he had. But here's what we have for the time being, because there's also another one that's connected later but has no relation now. There is a 6-issue miniseries comic that has 2 stories in it. One that talks about, which really is pointless, you can live without it, and it talks about, the story of a protagonist of Retribution before the start of the game, which, like I said, it's completely, optional. That one, you don't really need it for the purpose of the game. So at the very least, that one is fine. But however, the comic also tells you, and I will be sure to tell you in the upcoming parts of what happens, a critical information about 2 things. One, the backstory of one of the party members that Nathan Hale will actually hang around with, and 2, one important details. Quick reminder about geography, Jova. Remember, the Chimera thrive better in a cold environment, and we showcased with the towers that they are able to slightly terraform the environment to have a cold. Now, they did start in Russia. What's the easiest way to get from there to the United States?
Well, Alaska, duh.
That begs the question, why didn't they haven't done that? The comic is where to actually tell that, because that character that I mentioned, the entire mission is about going to Alaska, and find a way to stop the locusts, while in the meantime trying to rescue, I'm not even shitting you, Oppenheimer.
Ha!
And I know what you're thinking. Well, it's just a 6-issue miniseries. Maybe it's worth commenting it. No. I actually read it myself, and it was an excruciating, painful way.
Really? That bad?
Yes. The art, it's decompressed storytelling to its worst. There's a lot of panels where not much is happening, a lot of talking that is just annoying to highest degree. No offense for the writers Dan Abnett and Andy Lanning, but man, I really could not get that. So don't worry, Jova. I'll be sure to recap what happens in the comic, during the gameplay sections, because again, this also supplementary material. Sorry, this is supplementary material. But I'm not even done, because there's also an actual novel written
called The
Gathering Storm by William C. Dietz. And tells what Nathan actually does in these 2 years that we're going to skip. Namely, again, other important stuff, why the President of the United States isn't doing anything right now, basically.
Wow.
So, like I said, the story technically of the game is better, but we have this to actually anchor that. And as someone who genuinely actually liked all the supplementary material of Final Fantasy, I found this bizarre, to say the least.
I mean, supplementary material
Interesting.
for a further first-person shooter in the
And for the record, in
days
case you're
is-
wondering what's Sony's track record with this, as far as I know, Ratchet & Clank had a comic miniseries going on that is also canon with the games, but it only tells like one important thing regarding a character that the game does not tell, so a bit negligible, I suppose. And Sly had a comic series that essentially is a retelling of 2 that includes one of the cut levels, as I mentioned in that run. But I don't know. No, that is right. At the same time this was going on, I completely forgot until now. Infamous also had the tie-in comic between 1 and 2 that actually explained what happens, and that one is also part of the pun, Infamous, because it's is that. So again, I generally think at this point, Pedro, it was a fad at the time that a lot of companies were doing.
Yeah, I know, and all I had to say about that time period was, remember when the stories of games were in all of it in the games themselves?
Like, the idea is that, yes, it can be cool to see our favorite video game characters in other medias like comic books or movies or whatnot that can help extend the story if we wanted more. The thing is, it should never feel like a section of the story from the game.
Like
It
you
can
said,
only be
however,
understood
This
if
is not-
it's
This
fully
is not
there.
school. This is not school. I shouldn't have to do homework to properly get an A+.
Okay,
like
guys.
you said, sorry, go on.
Okay, like, let's ignore even just, like, looking at something extra, because, hey, maybe the idea is that the read will be good or fun. But still, that is extra money that you are asked to spend, and let me tell you, as a kid, it was just enough to get my parents to buy me a video game. Trying to get them to hunt down, like, a special comic book or sometimes a book.
And remember, this game was sold for $60 at launch because of, AAA title.
Yeah, again, like, if you're just a kid, good luck getting the entire story, goddamn.
Again, thankfully, thanks to the growing of the internet, these days you can find everything you want at fingertips, like PDF files, and scans. So at the very least, you don't have to actually spend money for these kind of things. But again, for the sake of fairness, and because, like he said, the things that they mention are fairly important, still, I will actually explain as the game goes on. So at the very least, I will do it so you don't have to. Anyway, see you for the next part where we see what Nate will be up to after these 2 years in the San Francisco Bay base. See ya.
Alright,
ya.
see ya.